Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. And today we've got a first impressions. I do have to give a huge shout out to the Knife Nuts podcast, Levon over there. If you don't follow him, go ahead and do that. Great guy who did help me to get my hands on these knives, or on this knife in particular. What you are looking at is the box for a Microtech that I've wanted for some time, and that is the MSI in OD green. I mean, I didn't care what the color was in particular, but this one happens to be OD green. This is a knife I have really wanted to get my hands on, and it just so happens that I end up getting my hands on it right around the time that I also get the stitch. So that's a pretty fortuitous circumstance. It wasn't planned that way, but it just sort of ended up happening. So I probably will do a couple of comparisons for these two knives. All right, let's get that out of the way and start off by pointing out that this is a very large knife. Nonetheless, it is also fairly slim, fairly affordable for what it is. Now, that's a relative term, okay? Be warned. And so there's a lot to love here. My first impression on this is really to just be impressed, okay? This is really nice. All right. So we have here sort of the other Ram lock model. Everyone and a lot of the excitement, a lot of the hype has been around the stitch, but this is actually really good. And in fact, for many people who just want to carry a good, effective folding cutting tool, this is probably the better option. I know that's a bit of a hot take, but frankly, this is just a little more, one, affordable, number two, carryable, number three, useful in terms of the blade to handle ratio, in terms of the cutting edge, in terms of a number of different things. This is probably the knife that most people would be better off buying. Okay, so we have M390 MK on the front here. You can see the Microtech logo. Let's see if I can show you the steel. Just got to catch the light right. You can probably see it right about there. Okay, sort of a reverse Tanto worn foot style blade. Very nicely done. We have satin on the flats and a very nice stonewash on the bevels, including the sort of the top swedge back here. Great blade shape overall. And this is one of the things I have to, this stands out to me right away as the kind of blade I wish more EDC style knives had. It's a little thicker. There's definitely some attention given to making this a strong, durable, heavy duty type of folding knife. And that's what I really like. As an EDC, I kind of want a knife that is up for just about anything, because I don't know what I'm going to be into on a given day. And so this is really in my wheelhouse. Moving on, we have the Ram lock, which is very good, but there is a problem with this pretty consistently, and I've heard a number of people talk about this, and certainly myself as well. It does have a bit of lock stick. Now, from everything that I've been able to see and from guys I've been able to talk to, the lock stick sort of wears down after a while, and it's not terrible. One of the things that definitely alleviates the problem is the fact that the way to actuate the Ram lock is very comfortable and grippy. So even, let's see if I can get a little bit of lock stick to happen. If I flick this open pretty hard, there's almost certainly a bit of lock stick here now. And even with one finger, you heard the snap, but I can easily and comfortably disengage that lock just with only a thumb, right? Or only an index finger. So for me, that's a pretty big win. One of the things that always bothered me about the Manix 2 XL, which I really enjoyed, was the fact that I always had to get two fingers on there to actuate the knife. And that was one of the areas that Benchmade had sort of shined. But this works really well, even with just one finger. So I've got to give a lot of credit to the Ram lock. Even though there's a bit of lock stick there, it's still very effective. If you haven't already seen, or depending on which order these post in, you may not have seen my stitch first impression video. You can see the coil spring right there. You can probably see it at the back as well. There you go. And you can see it from the front if I help you out a little. There you go. So you can see this is built differently than your typical axis lock knife. It's built, there's no omega springs in here. So um, pretty impressive implementation of a crossbar style lock. You know, Microtech definitely went their own way, and I think that was probably wise. And honestly, this is pretty different. Like, I feel like they could have released these knives even when the copyright laws were still binding for Benchmade. All right, let me get back to what we're talking about here. We're working our way through. We've got multi-row bearings, ram lock, very, very enjoyable in terms of the action, even with that little bit of lock stick. That is not a problem for, as far as I'm concerned, and I've spent a fair bit of time fidgeting with this already because you just can't help yourself. We've got FRN scales, very substantial backspacer here. All right, although notice that the liner does not come all the way through. It does extend all the way to the butt of the knife, all right, but it doesn't come all the way to the front. Okay, then we have two little, we've got a deep carry clip here, and we've got a spacer with screws on this side. This is not part of the liner. The liner kind of goes back this way and then ties in with the back spacer. Okay, I don't know how I can show you that. You can maybe see it right in here, but here we have two little inserts on both sides, which is the kind of attention to detail that I think is more needed in the knife world. So many companies would have either moved this clip to a different spot where there was already metal, or had screws going in just to G10 or just to aluminum or something like that, which is definitely something that I'm not a fan of. Okay, so doing this the right way is something that stood out to me right out of the box. We do have, of course, a lanyard hole there, which is fine. And we do have a knife that is pretty substantial. All right, you guys know I like larger knives, and so this is absolutely perfect for me. And in fact, I would go so far as to say this is even better than perfect, because it's a big knife that's easy to carry and not insanely heavy. So we've got 8 7/8 overall on this, 3 7/8 on the blade length, 5 1/16 closed. So it's just really a hair over 5 inches closed. 3 3/4 inches of finger space here, okay, of grip area. Plus, if you want, you can choke up here as well, and it's pretty comfortable in that choked up position. It's not necessary at all, but you can definitely do that if you were so inclined. The FRN version is pretty lightweight as well at 4.7 ounces. All right, now, so lots and lots of stuff to love here. It does have the same couple of weaknesses as the Stitch. If you've already seen that video, you'll know what I'm going to say next. I would have liked to see these screws to be flush. I would have liked to see the detent a little bit stiffer. And because of just the geometry and the weight of the blade and all of that, it's a little nicer to Spidey flick than the Stitch, but the detent could be just a hair stronger. And they would have to achieve that, it wouldn't be by doing anything to the spring. It would be by altering the shape of the blade tang a little bit, which I get could be a little difficult to work out, in exactly the way you would want to. So those are my only complaints. Overall, I absolutely love this knife, and I have to give some credit for value. Now, I'm in Canada, and here these knives are a little on the expensive side, probably more expensive than they should. Well, no, 100% more expensive than they should be. Like, for the materials and the construction on these knives, this is a great $200 knife, which is exactly what they are. In the US, these are like $175, which is perfect. In Canada, you translate that and it's like $240 or something like that. And for $240, I would be buying this all day, every day. That's fantastic. However, the actual price in Canada is around $365. If you look at various retailers, and even on the secondary market, they're going to be $300 or more, probably in the $340, $350 range. At that price, it's a little steep. If you're a big Microtech fan, if you want an absolutely great knife that beats out a lot of, competitors, yeah, this might be a good way to go for you. I'm going to do some comparisons with this knife because it just invites that. I think this is one of those knives that does so many things right that it deserves being put beside a number of other sort of classic, well-known, well-loved, and even highly recommended by me folders that you might put this beside, and it can either compete with them or maybe even beat them. So there's a lot of good here, even despite a couple of hiccups, and those hiccups are fairly minor. All right. So, yeah, fantastic, fantastic, fantastic knife. Super stoked to have this. Super stoked to be able to put some use into this and come back and tell you more about it later. For now, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check those channel sponsors. We will talk to you soon.